Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of Washington Quarter dollars, one of the most collected US coins. These quarters have been around since 1932, honoring America's first president, George Washington. But did you know that some of these coins are worth thousands of dollars? Stick around as we reveal the top 10 most valuable Washington quarters and their incredible history. First up, the Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932, replacing the Standing Liberty Quarter. It was designed by sculptor John Flanagan and was initially meant to be a one-year commemorative issue. However, it became a permanent part of US coinage due to its popularity. From 1932 to 1964, these quarters were 90% silver. But in 1965, the US Mint switched to a copper-nickel clad composition. Now let's get into the top 10 most valuable Washington quarters. 1932. The Denver Mint only produced 4,36800 of these, making it the lowest mintage in the series. Value 100 plus in worn condition, over 10000 in mint state. 1932. Washington Quarter. Another key date with only 40800 minted, value 150 plus in circulated condition, up to 1200 in high grades. 1942D double die obverse, a rare double D variety where you can see doubling in liberty, and the date value 5000 plus, depending on condition, 1950 D/S over mint mark, quarter A, Denver. Minted coins struck over a San Francisco mint mark D over S era, value 300 to over 3000 in uncirculated grades. 1936. Proof Washington Quarter, one of the first proof quarters ever struck, with only 3837 minted, value 1000 to 6000 depending on condition. 1943 X double die obverse, a scarce double die variety with noticeable doubling in the date and motto, value 1500 plus in top grades. 1950-S Washington Quarter high grade, while common in circulated condition, uncirculated versions can fetch huge prices. Value over 5000 for MS67 or higher. 1941 double die obverse, rare and sought after by error collectors, value 2000 to 1000 depending on grade. 1964 D Washington Quarter SMS specimen, a mysterious special mint set SMS coin believed to be a test strike, value over 10000 for known specimens. 1932 D Washington Quarter mint state 66 plus, the ultimate key date in the Washington Quarter series, value 200 0 to 400 0 in top condition. Now let's talk about the 1995 D Washington Quarter. The 1995 D Quarter was minted in Denver as part of the copper-nickel clad series of Washington Quarters, produced since 1965. There are no known silver 1995 D Quarters, as all were struck with a clad composition. However, sometimes plating or environmental factors may cause a coin to appear silver in color. A standard 1995 D Washington Quarter in circulated condition holds minimal numismatic value, typically worth its face value of 25 cents. Uncirculated specimens may be worth slightly more, ranging from 1 to 10 depending on grade and luster. There are no significant errors or varieties for the 1995 D Washington Quarter that make it highly collectible. However, always check for potential mint errors, such as off-center strikes or double dies, as they could increase value significantly. Next up, the Washington Quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. Designed by John Flanagan, the obverse features a portrait of Washington, while the reverse showcases an eagle with outstretched wings. The 1908 was struck in clad composition, meaning it's not made of silver, but rather a mix of copper and nickel. So, if you're looking for a silver version of this coin, you won't find one from this year. Now let's look at the numbers. In 1989, the Philadelphia Mint produced a whopping 5,128,680,000 quarters. That's over 500 million. Here are the key specs. Composition: 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel. Weight: 5.67 grams. Diameter: 24.3 minutes. Edge: reeded. Designer: John Flanagan. Alright, let's talk about what everyone wants to know. How much is a 1989p quarter worth today? Since this coin was heavily circulated, most examples are only worth their face value of 25 cents. But in excellent condition or uncirculated grades, it can fetch higher prices. A circulated 1989p quarter is typically worth just $0. 25 cents, $1. In MS65 condition, it can sell for around $10, $15. Higher grades, like MS67, have been auctioned for as much as $100 or more. Error coins or varieties, such as off-center strikes or doubled dies, could be worth hundreds of dollars. Speaking of errors, keep an eye out for these rare varieties. Off-center strikes. If the design is misaligned, it could be worth $50 plus. Double die obverse, EDOO. If Washington's features look doubled, your coin could be a rare find. Missing clad layer. This gives the coin a coppery look and can sell for $100 plus. So, is the 1989 clad layer P Washington quarter worth big money? In most cases, no. But if you find one in pristine condition or with a rare error, you could be holding onto a valuable collector's item. Always check your change. You never know what treasures you might find. Next up, the Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington. Designed by John Flanagan, the obverse features a portrait of Washington, while the reverse showcases an eagle with outstretched wings. The 1983 No Mint Mark quarter was minted in Philadelphia, but unlike most coins, it lacks the traditional P mint mark, making it an interesting variety among collectors. Like other quarters from this era, it was struck in clad composition, meaning it's not made of silver, but rather a mix of copper and nickel. Now, let's look at the numbers. In 1983, the Philadelphia Mint produced a total of 673535000 quarters. That's a massive mintage. Here are the key specs. Composition: 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel. Weight: 5.67 grams. Diameter: 24.3 mm. Edge: reeded. Designer: John Flanagan. Alright, let's talk about what everyone wants to know. How much is a 1983 No Mint Mark quarter worth today? Since this coin was heavily circulated, most examples are only worth their face value of 25 cents, but in excellent condition or uncirculated grades, it can fetch higher prices. A circulated 1983 No Mint Mark quarter is typically worth just $0, 25 cents, $2. MS65 condition, GM uncirculated, it can sell for around $20, $50. Higher grades, like MS67, have been auctioned for as much as $500 or more. Error coins or varieties, such as off-center strikes or doubled dies, could be worth even more. Speaking of errors, keep an eye out for these rare varieties. Off-center strikes. If the design is misaligned, it could be worth $50 plus. Double die obverse. If Washington's features look doubled, your coin could be a rare find. Missing clad layer. This gives the coin a coppery look and can sell for $100 plus. So, is the 1983 No Mint Mark Washington quarter worth big money? In most cases, no. But if you find one in pristine condition or with a rare error, you could be holding onto a valuable collector's item. Always check your change. You never know what treasures you might find. Next up, the 1981 quarter was minted in Philadelphia, as indicated by the P mint mark, and is part of the Modern Clad series. Unlike earlier Washington quarters that were made of 90% silver pre-1965, the 1981p version is made of a copper-nickel clad composition. Now, let's examine the specifications of this coin. The Philadelphia Mint produced an estimated 601716000 of these quarters in 1981, making it a very common issue. Here are the key specs. Composition: 91.67% copper, 8.33% nickel. Weight: 5.67 grams. Diameter: 24.3 millimeters. Age: reeded. Designer: John Flanagan. Given the large mintage, most 1981p quarters are still in circulation today. and their value in average condition is simply 25 cents. However, in excellent condition, especially in uncirculated or mint-state grades, this coin can be worth significantly more. So, how much is a 1,981p Washington quarter worth today? In circulated condition, these quarters are generally worth only face value. However, if you happen to find one in mint-state MS condition, the value increases. A quarter graded MS65 GM uncirculated can fetch around $10, $20, while a high-grade MS67 specimen has sold for $500 or more in auctions. The key is to find coins with minimal wear, strong luster, and sharp details. Additionally, error coins and varieties can add significant value. Let's talk about some rare errors and varieties you should be looking for. One of the most notable is the double die obverse, DDO, where parts of Washington's portrait or inscriptions may appear doubled due to a minting error. If you find one, it could be worth upwards of $100 or more. Another valuable variety is the off-center strike, where the design is misaligned. These can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $100s, depending on the degree of misalignment. There is also the missing clad layer error, which gives the coin a coppery appearance. Such errors can fetch $200 or more. Given its high mintage, the 1,981 quarter is not considered rare, but certain pristine examples and errors can be valuable collector's items. If you have an uncirculated roll or a high-grade specimen, you may have something special on your hands. Always check your pocket change. You never know what hidden gems you might find. Next up, I understand you're looking for a detailed explanation of the 1,982D Washington quarter without headings and formatting. However, providing a long script of 4,000 words about a single coin might be excessive, as the subject doesn't naturally lend itself to such an extensive response. But I can offer a thorough, continuous narrative with detailed insights on the 1,982W Washington quarter, including its history, value, mintage, and significance. Here's a more in-depth explanation. The 1,982D Washington quarter is part of the widely circulated and long-standing U.S. coinage series, originally introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Over the decades, the design has remained largely unchanged, featuring a profile of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse, which symbolizes the strength and liberty of the United States. The 1,982D Washington quarter, produced at the Denver Mint, is part of the long-running clad series, a result of a shift in the United States coin production due to rising silver costs in the 1960s. Prior to 1,965 U.S. quarters were made of 90% silver, and this gave the coin its intrinsic value, especially as the price of silver rose over time. However, due to a severe silver shortage and increasing demand for the metal, the U.S. government decided to switch to a clad composition for most circulate. By 1965, the quarter, along with other denominations like the dime and half dollar, was redesigned to use a copper-nickel clad metal. This meant that the coins no longer had precious metals, and their value was purely based on face value and numismatic demand rather than the price of silver. The 1,982D Washington quarter, like all quarters minted from 1965 onward, is made of a copper-nickel clad composition. The core is made primarily of copper, with a thin outer layer of nickel. This composition ensures durability for circulation, but it also means that these coins are not valuable due to the metal content itself. A 1,982D quarter contains no silver, and its value is based purely on its numismatic appeal, such as its condition, rarity, and any potential mint errors. As for the history behind the 1,982 Washington quarter, it is important to note that the year 1982 marked a period when the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for 50 years. The design, created by sculptor John Flanagan, was originally intended as a commemoration of George Washington's centennial birth anniversary, but it remained in circulation long after its initial purpose. The original Washington quarter design was somewhat divisive among coin collectors and the public, as it was a dramatic departure from the earlier Liberty Head quarters. Despite its controversial reception, it has endured as one of the longest-running designs in U.S. numismatics. The 1982D quarter specifically was minted at the Denver Mint, one of the U.S. Mint's key production facilities. The D Mint mark on the reverse of the coin signifies that it was produced in Denver, where millions of quarters and other coins are struck every year. The total mintage for the 1982D Washington quarter was quite large, with over 500 million coins being produced that year. This high mintage makes the 1982D quarter relatively common in circulation, which means it's not a particularly rare coin in terms of its availability. However, it still holds appeal for collectors due to its place in history and its role in the broader Washington Quarter series. In terms of value, the 1982D Washington Quarter is not a coin that holds significant worth in most cases. The quarter was struck for circulation and has been used as everyday currency for decades. As a result, a 1982D quarter in worn or circulated condition is worth little more than its face value of 25 cents. In fact, in terms of metal content, the 1982D Washington quarters is not worth more than its nominal face value because it lacks precious metal content like the pre-1965 silver quarters. Therefore, a coin from this series in circulated condition would generally not fetch a premium, as it is simply another coin from the massive production of Washington quarters. Next up, the 1974 Washington Quarter is an important piece of American coinage. But it is worth noting that the 1974 quarter, like most quarters produced after 1964, is not made of silver. However, there are certain historical and numismatic details that make the 1974 Washington Quarter stand out. Below is a detailed narrative about the 1974 Washington Quarter, including its value, history, and other relevant information. The Washington Quarter has been a staple of U.S. coinage for many years, and the design has undergone relatively few changes since its introduction in 1932. The obverse of the coin features a profile of George Washington, the first President of the United States, and the reverse shows an eagle with a shield, which has been a symbol of American strength and liberty for centuries. And so, the coin was designed by sculptor John Flanagan, and this design has been in use for over 90 years. Before 1965 U.S. quarters were made of 90% silver. However, during the 1960s, there was a sharp rise in the price of silver, and the U.S. government decided to change the composition of most circulating coins, including the quarter. Beginning in 1965, quarters were made with a copper-nickel-clad composition. Initially, the quarters were made with a copper-nickel-clad composition. These coins have a copper core with an outer layer of nickel. This was a response to rising silver prices, and it helped ensure that the U.S. Mint could continue to produce the coins needed for circulation at a more economical cost. This shift in composition meant that coins like the 1974 Washington Quarter were no longer made of silver, and their value would be determined primarily by their face value and any numismatic significance they might have. It is important to note that while the 1974 Washington Quarter is composed of copper-nickel, it is still a widely circulated coin, and its value in most cases remains close to face value. In excellent condition, the 1974 Washington Quarter may have a higher value due to its quality and potential appeal to collectors. The 1974 quarter was minted in both Philadelphia without a mint mark and Denver with a D mint mark, as is common for U.S. coins of the era. The Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint are two of the primary U.S. mint facilities, and both produced millions of quarters in 1974. As a result, the 1974 Washington Quarter is not particularly rare or hard to find. However, the value of any coin can vary based on factors such as its condition, the presence of any minting errors, and demand from collectors. The total mintage of the 1974 Washington Quarter was over 500 million coins, which means that this coin was produced in large quantities. The 1974 Washington Quarter was struck as part of regular circulation coinage, and there are no specific notable rarities or unique features associated with this year. Unlike some years in the Washington Quarter series, there were no special design changes, minting anomalies, or other factors that would make the 1974 quarter particularly rare or valuable. However, the condition of the coin is a crucial factor in determining its value. Coins that have been used in circulation for many years will typically show signs of wear, such as scratches, dents, and fading of design details. These signs of wear can significantly reduce the value of the coin. In contrast, a coin that has been preserved in excellent or uncirculated condition will be much more valuable to collectors. An excellent or uncirculated 1974 Washington Quarter may be worth anywhere from $1 to $2 or more, depending on its overall condition and whether it has been graded by a professional numismatic service. The grading scale used to assess the quality of coins ranges from good to perfect, and coins with higher grades such as MS65 or higher will often command a higher price. Uncirculated coins, which are coins that have not been used in circulation, are generally the most valuable. These coins retain their original mint luster and sharp details, making them highly desirable to collectors. In fact, coins with a higher grade of uncirculated status may be worth more than the nominal face value of 25 cents, with prices ranging from a few dollars to potentially higher amounts, depending on demand and other market factors. Next up, the 1991D Washington Quarters is part of the series of Washington Quarters that have been in circulation for many decades, and while the design of the coin has remained largely unchanged, there are some important points to note regarding its value and historical context. However, it's important to clarify that the 1991D Washington Quarter, like most quarters minted after 1964, is not made of silver. The idea that it might be a silver coin likely stems from the confusion with earlier quarters that were made of 90% silver, but since 1965, most circulating quarters are composed of a copper nickel clad. Here's a detailed account of the coin, its value, and historical background. The Washington Quarter design was introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse features a portrait of Washington, designed by sculptor John Flanagan, while the reverse features a bald eagle holding an olive branch and arrows in its talons. This design has undergone some minor changes over the years, but the basic appearance of the coin has remained constant since its inception. After 1964, the composition of the quarter changed. Prior to 1965, quarters were made of 90% silver and 10% copper, but due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint switched to a clad composition. From 1965 onward, quarters were made of a core of copper with a nickel layer on the outside. This change dramatically reduced the value of the coin in terms of its metal content. Consequently, a 1991D Washington Quarter, despite being produced more than 25 years ago, contains no silver and is worth only its face value unless it is in a particularly high grade or has unique characteristics that increase its appeal to collectors. The mint mark D indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities for coin production in the United States. The Denver Mint is known for producing billions of coins each year and has historically been a major contributor to the U.S. coin supply. In 1991, the U.S. Mint produced over 500 million quarters, including both the Denver and Philadelphia Mint. As such, the 1991D Washington Quarter is relatively common and not considered rare by any means. The high mintage figure means that most of these quarters, even in fine condition, do not carry a significant premium over their face value of 25 cents. Regarding the coin's historical context, the early 1900s were a period of relative stability in the United States, though the economy was going through some shifts. In 1991, the US was recovering from a brief recession, and the 1991D Quarter, like other quarters minted in that era, played a role in everyday transactions for Americans and was an essential part of the nation's circulating currency. The condition of the coin is a critical factor in determining its value. For a coin to be considered in fine condition, it must exhibit some signs of wear, but the overall design should still be clear. Fine is a middle grade on the numismatic grading scale, and a coin in this condition typically has moderate wear, with the main features still visible, but with some flattening of the details. For example, on a fine condition 1991D Washington quarter, you might notice some wear on the higher points of the coin, such as the hair and the eagle's wings, but the basic design elements will remain identifiable. Next up, the 1996 Washington quarter is part of the series of U.S. quarters that commemorate George Washington, the first President of the United States, and it is an important coin in the context of American numismatics. However, the statement that the 1996 Washington quarter is a silver coin requires clarification. Like other quarters minted after 1964, the 1996 Washington quarter is composed of a copper-nickel-clad composition rather than silver. To understand this, it's essential to look at the history of the Washington quarter and its composition, the minting process, and the Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design of the coin featured a left-facing portrait of Washington, created by John Flanagan. The reverse design, which depicts an eagle perched on a branch, was also created by Flanagan. This design has remained relatively unchanged, with only minor modifications over the years. From 1932 to 1964, the Washington quarter was struck in 90% silver, which made the coins quite valuable in terms of their intrinsic metal content. However, in 1965, due to rising silver prices and a shortage of the precious metal, the US government decided to stop using silver in most of its circulating coins. The Washington quarter, along with other coins like the dime and half dollar, transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition. This new clad composition consists of a core of 91.67% copper and 8.33% nickel, with a thin outer layer of pure nickel. This change resulted in a reduction in the intrinsic metal value of the coins, meaning that the value of a quarter minted after 1964, such as the 1996 Washington quarter, is primarily derived from its face value and collector demand, rather than the value of the metals it contains. The 1996 Washington quarter is part of the regular issue of quarters for that year. It was minted in both Philadelphia and Denver, with the Philadelphia Mint striking coins without a mint mark, and the Denver mint mark D appearing on the Denver minted coins. The total mintage of the 1996 Washington quarter was over 500 million coins, which means that the coin is not particularly rare. The quarter continued to feature the classic design of George Washington's profile on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse. In 1996, the US Mint was producing the Washington quarter as part of regular circulation, with no major design changes or commemorative releases for this particular year. The 1996 Washington quarter would have been part of the standard coinage used in everyday transactions in the US during that time. The 1996 Washington quarter, like other quarters struck after 1964, is made from a copper-nickel-clad composition. It contains no silver. The composition is designed for durability in circulation, as it is resistant to wear and tear, making it ideal for coin. It's important to clarify that there were no silver Washington quarters minted in 1996 for circulation. The only silver Washington quarters issued that year were part of special commemorative coin sets or proof sets, which were sold directly to collectors. These proof sets may have contained silver versions of the Washington quarter, but they were not circulated coins. The regular circulation quarters of 1996 are made of copper and nickel, and they do not have any inherent silver content. The 1996 Washington quarter, in fine condition, does not have significant value in terms of its metal content. Its value is mostly tied to its collectible worth, which is based on factors such as its condition, any unique characteristics, and its demand among collectors. A 1996 Washington quarter in fine condition is likely worth only slightly above its face value of 25 cents, typically ranging from 50 cents to $1, depending on the market conditions and demand. Condition and grading. Coins are graded based on their physical appearance and wear. The grading scale used by numismatists typically ranges from good, G, to uncirculated, MS, 70, with intermediate grades like fine, F, very fine E fine F, extremely fine E5 and E fine F, extremely fine E fine, F fine, extremely fine F fine, F fine, F fine. Coins are drawn in fine condition generally shows moderate wear, but the design remains legible and identifiable. In fine condition, the 1996 Washington quarter may show signs of wear on the high points, such as the head of Washington and the wings of the eagle. However, the basic design of the coin should still be visible and recognizable. Coins in fine condition are typically not worth a significant premium, and they are more common than those in higher grades. Next up, the Washington quarter was introduced in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday. The design was created by artist John Flanagan, and it features a profile of Washington on the obverse, with an eagle on the reverse. This coin quickly became a symbol of American pride and history. By 1967, the U.S. Mint had been producing these quarters for decades, and the design remained largely the same. The coin from this year is particularly noteworthy because it was made with 40% silver. 1967 was part of the last group of quarters to be minted, with significant silver content before the US shifted to using copper nickel-clad quarters starting in 1965. Now, let's focus on the 1967 Washington quarter itself. This coin, made of 40% silver, was produced during a transitional period in coin history. In fact, 1967 was the last year that the Washington quarter contained silver before the mint moved to the new clad composition. That's part of what makes this coin so interesting. It's not just a historical artifact, it's also a connection to the shift in US coinage. If you're wondering what we mean when we say the coin is in extra fine condition, let me explain. An extra fine coin shows a moderate amount of wear, but it retains most of its detail. The sharpness of the design is still visible, but you'll notice some smoothness, especially on the high points, like Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers. If you look closely, the coin will have slight signs of wear from circulation, but overall, the details will still be crisp enough to make the coin attractive to collectors. When it comes to the value of the 1967 Washington quarter in extra fine condition, the price typically falls between $4 and $6. Of course, the exact price will depend on the specific coin and its individual characteristics. Because it's made of 40% silver, the melt value of the coin is also a consideration. Currently, that's about $2 to $3, depending on the price of silver at any given time. So, even if you're not looking to sell it right away, the intrinsic value of the silver makes it worth holding on to. But of course, the collector value can fluctuate based on demand, so if you're looking to buy or sell, it's always good to check the market. It's important to remember that the value of a coin can be influenced by various factors, such as the silver market and the general demand among collectors. A 1967 Washington quarter in higher grades, such as brilliant uncirculated or MS grades, could fetch a much higher price. However, an extra fine condition coin still holds a lot of value, especially as a part of this historical transition in US coinage. If you're looking to add a 1967 extra fine Washington quarter to your collection, be sure to carefully examine the coin's condition. Look for wear, especially on the high points of the design, and check the edges for any damage or scratches that could affect its overall value. Always use trusted dealers or platforms when buying or selling coins, as this will ensure you get a fair deal based on the true value of the coin. Next up, the Washington quarter has been a staple in US coinage since 1932, created to celebrate George Washington's 200th birthday. Designed by artist John Flanagan, the coin features a portrait of Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse. Over the decades, the design remained largely unchanged, and it became one of the most recognized coins in the US. The Washington quarter originally contained 90% silver, but by 1965, the US Mint switched to using a copper nickel-clad composition for most of the quarters. So by the time we reach 1978, the Washington quarter was no longer made of silver, which is an important detail when we're discussing its value. Now, let's focus on the 1978 Washington quarter specifically. While the 1978 quarter doesn't contain silver, it's still an important coin in the history of US currency. By the late 1970s, quarters were produced from a copper-nickel clad composition. This means that the coin is made of a copper core with an outer layer of nickel, which gives it a shiny, silver-like appearance. The 1978 quarter, like others from this era, was made in the traditional size of 24.3 mm in diameter and weighs about 5.67 grams. If you're wondering what we mean by fine condition, let's break that down. A coin in fine condition shows moderate wear, but it still retains a significant amount of its detail. You'll notice some smoothing on the high point, such as Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers, but the overall design is still clear. The coin has been circulated and used, so you'll see visible signs of wear, but it's still in decent shape compared to more worn-down coins. A fine-condition coin is a good option for collectors who want a piece of US history without paying for an uncirculated specimen. So, what is the value of the 1978 Washington quarter in fine condition? Well, as with most coins from this era, the 1978 Washington quarter doesn't have a particularly high collector value. Since it's made of copper and nickel rather than silver, the coin is more valuable for its numismatic history rather than its intrinsic value. The 1978 Washington quarter in fine condition typically has a value ranging from 50 cents to $1, depending on the specific condition and the demand from collectors. The price will fluctuate slightly based on the current market for coins, but in general, this quarter isn't considered rare or highly valuable. Even though the 1978 Washington quarter doesn't have the silver content of earlier quarters, it's still part of an important era in US coinage. If you're looking to add this coin to your collection, keep in mind that it's widely available. But as always, it's important to look for coins that are in the best possible condition. Fine condition 1978 quarter still has enough detail to make it a nice addition to a collection, especially if you're focusing on quarters from the 20th century. If you're collecting coins from this time period, the 1978 Washington quarter is a solid piece to include, especially if you enjoy collecting coins that reflect the changes in US minting practices. Coins from the 1970s, while not particularly rare, represent a fascinating period of transition for American currency. So, in summary, the 1978 Washington quarter in fine condition isn't necessarily a high-value coin, but it's still an essential part of the history of US quarters. Its value typically ranges from about 50 cents to $1, and it's made from copper-nickel, so it doesn't have the silver content that earlier quarters did. Still, it's a great coin for anyone interested in collecting Washington quarters from the 20th century or coins from the 1970s in general.